The moment I looked into that being's eyes, I knew nothing would ever be the same. His words still echo in my mind, a kind of sacred mantra. You have been chosen for a special mission. To understand how I ended up there, we need to go back. Just 3 months ago, I had hit rock bottom. I was at that point in life where you wake up and the very first thought that hits you is, well, what is the point of me being here? My name is Raphael, I'm 34, and if you'd seen me then, you would have met a man who was completely adrift. I'd just been laid off from a company where I'd spent the last 8 years. You know how that goes. My marriage was fraying, held together by the thinnest of threads. We fought constantly, always about money, always about the future. And then, as the final blow, my mother was diagnosed with aggressive lung cancer. It felt like the universe was testing my absolute limits. I'd always been the optimist, the guy who believed things would eventually work out. But now, I was sinking into a deep, heavy depression. I reached a point where I hardly ever left the house. Most days I would just lie on the sofa staring at whatever was on television, anything to avoid being left alone with my own mind. My wife, Mariana, tried to get through to me in the beginning. Rafa, you have to react, she'd say. Go for a walk, see a therapist, just do something. But I was paralyzed. It felt like a crushing weight was sitting on my chest and a thick fog filled my head, obscuring any possible path forward. It was on one of those nights of absolute sleeplessness, the kind where you just toss and turn in bed until 4 in the morning, that I finally decided to go for a walk. I simply couldn't stand being inside those 4 walls anymore. I pulled on a jacket and left without any real destination, just wanting to feel the cold dawn air on my face. I live in a small town, the type of place that becomes a ghost town after 10 o'clock at night. The streets were empty. The only sounds were my own footsteps on the asphalt and that profound silence that seems to make all your problems feel louder. I walked aimlessly until I ended up in a secluded, dimly lit square, a place I sometimes go when I need to think. I sat on a bench and just began to cry. I don't mean a controlled, quiet cry. This was the sob of someone who has nothing left, who simply cannot take it anymore. What a pathetic life this is, I thought. Is there any reason to keep trying? And that's when it happened. First, I felt a strange tingle on the back of my neck. Then came the distinct sensation that someone was watching me. I lifted my head and wiped my eyes, and that's when I saw it. On the far side of the square, a soft golden light was starting to form. It wasn't like the glow from a street lamp or the beam of a car's headlights. This was different. It felt more alive, if that makes sense. The light continued to grow, becoming more intense, but it never hurt my eyes. On the contrary, it was soothing, as if it carried a peace that I hadn't felt in months. My first instinct was to run. My rational mind was screaming at me, "You're having a mental breakdown. This isn't real." But my feet were rooted to the spot. It wasn't fear that held me there. It was something else. A profound part of me knew that this, as impossible as it seemed, was exactly what I needed. The light began to coalesce, to take on a shape. First, a tall, elegant silhouette emerged, then the contours sharpened into focus. And that is when I saw him. He looked nothing like the aliens from the movies. There was no giant head, no menacing black eyes. He was simply beautiful. It's the only word I can use. He stood about 6.5 feet tall, his skin a soft, almost translucent shade of gold. And his eyes, though large, conveyed a wisdom and compassion I had never witnessed in any human being. He approached me slowly, with the care one might use to avoid startling a wounded animal. The moment our eyes met, I felt, how do I even explain it? It was as though he could see directly into me, not just my body, but my entire soul. He saw all the fear, all the pain, all the anguish that was consuming me. Yet in his gaze I found no judgment. I saw only pure love. It was a compassion so deep that it made me cry again, but this time the tears were from relief. And that's when he spoke, not with a mouth. I'm not even sure if he had one in the way that we do. The voice bloomed directly inside my mind. It wasn't intrusive. It felt like my own internal voice. Only it was filled with a wisdom I could never possess. Raphael, it said, and hearing my name spoken that way sent a tremor through my entire being. You have been chosen for a special mission. In that moment, without understanding anything about what was happening, I knew my life had changed forever. But let me tell you a bit more about myself, because you might just see a part of your own story in mine. As I mentioned, my name is Raphael and I'm 34. I've always been the kind of person who believes in the good in people. I come from a simple family in the countryside of São Paulo. My father was a mechanic, my mother was a homemaker, and from them I learned early on that the most important things in life were hard work and honesty. I put myself through college, earning a degree in business administration by working at a building supply store during the day and taking classes at night. It was during my first semester that I met Mariana. She was at the same school studying to be a teacher. For me, it was love at first sight. That immediate recognition when you look at someone and just think, that's her. That's the person I want to build a family with. After we graduated, we started to build a stable life. She began teaching at a local public school, and I landed a job at a logistics company where I'd end up staying for 8 years. I started as an administrative assistant and slowly worked my way up. We weren't rich, but we had a good life. We had our dreams, buying a house, having kids, taking a trip at least once a year. But life doesn't always follow your plans, does it? Around 2019, the company began to show signs of trouble. Contracts were being canceled and paychecks started coming in late. But I was the eternal optimist, and I just kept telling myself that everything would be fine. It's just a bad phase, I would tell Mariana. Things will get better soon. But they didn't get better. The first wave of layoffs came in March of 2020. I managed to avoid it. The second wave hit in August. This time, they cut half the staff, including several of my close friends. By then, I was constantly on edge, sending my resume out everywhere. But the job market was a mess. Too many people looking for work and not enough positions to go around. That's when my mother called with the kind of news no child ever wants to hear. "Rafa," she said, her voice trembling, "I need to tell you something. I went to the doctor for some routine tests and, son, they found a spot on my lung." The words felt like a punch to the gut. My mother had always been my hero. She was the strong woman who raised 3 children almost by herself when my father fell ill. Seeing her like that, hearing the fear in her voice just broke me. The tests confirmed it. Advanced stage lung cancer. The doctor was direct. "With aggressive treatment," he said, "we have a chance of controlling the disease, but it's going to be a difficult battle." And that was when my world really started to fall apart. It was no longer enough to be worried about my unstable job. Now I had to face the possibility of losing my mother. The hospital bills started to arrive. Her health insurance didn't cover everything, so my siblings and I had to pool our money to pay for the treatments. Mariana, bless her, tried to keep my spirits up. "My love, it's all going to work out," she would say. "Your mother is a fighter, and you'll find a better job. You'll see." But I could see the worry in her eyes even as she tried to sound strong. Our joint bank account was in the red. We stopped going out, canceled our plans, and cut back on everything that wasn't essential. Then in December of 2020, the final blow landed. I was called into the HR office, and I knew exactly what was coming. It was the usual speech. Raphael, we really value your work, but unfortunately, followed by corporate platitudes. The bottom line was 2 weeks' notice. And just like that, 8 years of my life were gone. I remember getting home that afternoon and telling Mariana. She tried to hide it, but I saw the panic flash across her face. "And now?" she asked. "What are we going to do?" I had no answer for her. For the first time in my life, I didn't have a plan B. The first few months of 2021 were the worst I've ever lived through. Every morning I'd wake up and promise myself I would send out resumes, reach out to my network, look for new opportunities. But then I would sit down at the computer and a wave of discouragement would wash over me, so powerful that I couldn't do a thing. I would just sit there scrolling through social media, watching a parade of happy, employed people carrying out their incredible projects. And what about me? I was a 34-year-old failure, unemployed, watching my mother waste away in a hospital, and feeling my marriage crumble day by day. Mariana started to get irritated with me, and I can't blame her. She would go out to work every single day and come home to find her husband in the exact same spot, wearing the exact same clothes, with the exact same look of defeat on his face. "Rafa, you have to do something," she'd plead. "You can't just stay like this." But she couldn't understand what it was truly like. This wasn't a matter of laziness or a lack of willpower. It was like having a void inside my chest that was siphoning away every ounce of my energy and my hope. I had always been the positive one, the guy who cheered everybody else on. Now on the inside, I was completely broken. I reached a point where I couldn't even bring myself to visit my mother in the hospital. Seeing her there, weak, bald from the chemotherapy, and then hearing her ask how work was going, I just didn't have the courage to tell her the truth. I would lie. I'd tell her everything was fine, that something would turn up any day now. But inside, I was screaming at myself, I am a failure. I can't even take care of the people I love. And that's what brought me to that square in the early morning hours, completely defeated, without a shred of hope, thinking that maybe it would be better if I just disappeared. If you've ever felt anything like this, let me know in the comments. Because one thing I learned is that I wasn't alone in this feeling. And what followed that night didn't just change my life, it changed my entire understanding of what we are capable of when we finally connect with our true purpose. So, back to that morning in the square. After the being delivered that message, "You have been chosen for a special mission." I stood there in silence for several seconds. My mind was just racing, trying to process what was actually happening. "Is this real?" I asked. My voice came out raspy, unfamiliar. "Or have I finally gone completely insane?" He simply smiled. I can't quite explain his expression because his face was different from ours, but I could feel that it was a smile, one full of patience and understanding. "Raphael," the voice continued in my mind, "I know you are confused. I know your mind is trying to find a logical explanation for what your eyes are seeing. This is natural, but I ask you to breathe deeply and just feel." And when he said that, something strange happened. A wave of calm washed over my entire body, as if someone had injected pure peace into my veins. The constant anxiety that had been my companion for months simply dissolved. "What? Who are you?" I managed to ask. "We are beings from a superior dimension," he replied, taking a few more steps toward me. "We come from a place that you cannot yet completely comprehend, but that doesn't matter now. What matters is that we are here to help." "Help?" I asked. "Help with what?" That's when he did something that sent a chill through my whole body. He extended what looked like a hand in my direction. It was longer than a human hand with delicate fingers. When I hesitated, the voice came again. "Trust me, Raphael. I am going to show you something you need to see." I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was that feeling of peace he radiated. But I reached out my own hand and touched his. What happened next is indescribable. In an instant, I was no longer in the square. It was as if we were floating in another dimension entirely. A soft golden light surrounded us, and through it I could see our city, but from a perspective I had never imagined possible. "What do you see, Raphael?" the voice asked. I looked down, and it took me a moment to understand. I wasn't just seeing buildings and streets and houses. I was seeing the people, not their physical forms, but something else. Their souls, their energy. I don't have the right word for it. And what I saw took my breath away. Every person was a point of light. But so many of those lights were weak, flickering, some on the verge of going out completely. In that instant, I understood. The lights represented each person's health, their vitality, their hope. "Your city is sick, Raphael," he said, and I could feel a profound sadness in his voice. Not just physically, but spiritually. People have lost their connection to their own life force. They have lost faith in healing, in transformation, in the possibility of a better life. "But I can't do anything," I replied, that familiar wave of helplessness washing over me. "Look at me. I'm a complete disaster. I can't even sort out my own life." That's when he did something that changed everything. He placed his long hand on the center of my chest. Immediately, an incredible energy surged through my entire body. It felt as though every single cell was being recharged and renewed. "Raphael," he said, and now his voice held a tone of revelation. "You do not see who you truly are. Since childhood, you have possessed a rare gift," the voice continued in my mind. "A gift of energy healing that can transform the lives of the people around you." "A healing gift?" I shot back. "What are you talking about?" "Think back to your grandmother when you were a child," he urged. "Remember when she would get sick? When you would put your hands on her chest and she would say that she felt better?" My mind raced. How could he know that? My maternal grandmother always had heart trouble. I couldn't have been more than 8 or 9. Whenever she had a crisis, I would run to her and lay my small hands on her chest. And she would always say, "Oh, little Rafa, you have angel hands. Grandma is feeling better already." Back then, I just assumed it was a grandmother's affection, a product of imagination. "And your friends at school?" the voice went on. "How they always came to you when they were sad or hurt." I did remember. I was always the person everyone sought out when they had a problem. "Rafa, talk to me," they'd say. "You always make me feel better." I just thought it was because I was a good listener. "And your mother?" he continued. "In these last few months, how many times have you visited her in the hospital? And after every single one of those visits, didn't she improve, even if only for a short time right after you left?" That question hit me like a punch. It was true. Every time I went to see my mother, even on the days she was at her worst, she would call me a few hours later saying she was feeling a little better. The doctors had even mentioned it. These unexplainable improvements she would have right after our talks. "Those are just coincidences," I murmured, though I was no longer so sure. "There are no coincidences, Raphael. There is only universal energy flowing through special people like you. The problem is that your species has lost its connection to this knowledge. You have forgotten that you possess healing powers that go far beyond the understanding of your traditional medicine." The vision began to dissolve, and in an instant we were back in the square, but I felt completely different. The energy he had placed inside me was still pulsing through my veins. I felt more alive than I had in months. "Why are you telling me all this?" I asked. "Because the time has come for you to awaken to your true purpose," he replied. Your depression, your problems, this feeling of being lost. All of it was to prepare you for this moment. It was necessary for you to understand suffering so that you could develop true compassion and become a channel of healing for others who are going through the same pain. I looked at him, still trying to absorb it all. You mean I can actually help people, heal them? With the right training, yes, I can teach you how to fully awaken this gift, how to direct this energy consciously, and how to become a true healer. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. It was hope, a real, tangible hope. But why me? I asked. Why not someone better, someone more prepared? He moved closer again, placing his hand on my shoulder. Because, Raphael, he said, the greatest healers are the ones who know pain intimately. They are the ones who have been to the bottom and found the strength to climb back out. Your journey to this point was no accident. It was your preparation. His words echoed in my mind, preparation. Could that be right? All of it, the job loss, the depression, watching my mother suffer, had all of it really been a kind of training? I don't understand, I said. What do you mean, preparation? He took a few steps back, gesturing out at the city sprawling before us. Raphael, to be a true healer, you must have genuine compassion. And genuine compassion is only born from the experience of pain. You needed to know what it felt like to be lost, to be hopeless, to feel abandoned by the universe. Only then could you truly connect with the people you are meant to help. In a strange way, it made perfect sense. I thought about the last few months, seeing people on the street or in the grocery store line who looked as beaten down as I felt. I'd always felt an instant connection, as if I recognized in their eyes the same emptiness I was carrying inside me. Your mission, he continued, is to awaken and fully develop your gift of energy healing. But this is not just for you. It is so you can become a beacon of hope for your community. What do you mean? I asked. Look around you, Raphael. Your city, like so many others across your world, is struggling. People are getting sick, he said, not just in their bodies, but emotionally and spiritually. They are suffering from depression, from anxiety, and from diseases that your traditional medicine cannot fully explain. As he spoke, my mind filled with faces. I thought of my neighbor, John, who had developed an ulcer out of nowhere that the doctors couldn't find a cause for. My sister-in-law, Sandra, who for 2 years has been fighting fibromyalgia that started after a period of intense stress at her job. My friend Carlos, who still suffers from panic attacks even with all the medication he takes for his anxiety. They need something that goes beyond conventional remedies, the being continued. They need someone who can work with their vital energy, someone who can help them reconnect with their own power to heal. But I don't know the first thing about any of this, I protested. How can I possibly help anyone when I don't even understand how it works? That is why I am here, he said. And for the first time I noticed something that looked like a broad smile on his face. I am going to teach you. He explained that over the next few weeks he would appear to me at certain times and pass on knowledge that had been preserved for millennia. Techniques for channeling energy, methods for cleansing it, and ways to identify blockages and imbalances in others. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. What if I couldn't do it? What if I wasn't good enough? Raphael. His voice became softer, almost paternal. You have been doing this your entire life. You just didn't know you were doing it. Think about your mother calling after your visits, telling you she felt better. Or your friends, who always felt a sense of relief after talking with you. You are already a natural healer. All we are going to do now is teach your conscious mind how to direct this gift more effectively. He extended his hand one more time. But first, you need to understand the true importance of this mission. I am going to show you the scale of the impact you can have." I hesitated for only a second. My curiosity was too strong. I touched his hand again. This time, the vision was even more intense. I was no longer seeing the city from above. It was as if I were walking through its streets, entering homes, hospitals, and clinics. I saw a woman, perhaps 70 years old, alone in her apartment, taking sleeping pills every night because the loneliness wouldn't let her rest. I saw a young man of 25, an engineering graduate who hadn't found a job in 2 years and was sinking into a severe depression. I saw a mother fighting breast cancer, losing the battle not so much to the disease itself, but to the fear and despair that came with it. All of these people, the being's voice explained, could be helped with energy healing. I am not saying you will replace traditional medicine, but you can be a powerful complement to it. You can give them back their hope, their vitality, their connection to their own inner strength. The vision shifted. Now I was seeing myself in the future, more confident, more radiant. I was in a simple room with a person lying on a table. I placed my hands over them and saw a golden light flowing from my fingers. The person on the table, who had arrived tense and in pain, got up with a smile of relief on their face. I saw this happen over and over with different people. I saw my neighbor John leaving with his ulcer healed. I saw Sandra finally managing to get rid of her fibromyalgia pains. I saw Carlos having his first peaceful night's sleep in 2 years. "Is this possible?" I asked, still absorbing the images. "It is not only possible, Raphael. It is your destiny. You have the potential to become one of the most powerful energy healers in your region, but only if you accept this mission and dedicate yourself completely to the training." We returned to the square. My mind was racing. "And my personal life?" I asked. "My problems? My unemployment?" "When you begin to live your true purpose," Juan, he explained, "the universe conspires in your favor. I will not lie to you. You will still have challenges, but you will have an inner strength and a direction that will completely transform how you deal with them." I looked at him, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear. "If I accept, when do we start?" "Now," he said simply. "Your first lesson starts now. Close your eyes." I did as he asked. Breathe deeply 3 times. On the 3rd breath, imagine a golden light entering through the top of your head and descending through your entire body. And man, I felt something incredible. It felt like every single cell in my body was being supercharged. "This is your vital energy being consciously activated," he explained. "For the next few days, I want you to practice this every morning when you wake up and every night before you go to sleep. It is the first step to fully awakening your gift." When I opened my eyes, he was already starting to move away. "Wait," I called out. "How will I know when you're coming back?" "You will know," he said, his form already becoming translucent. "And Raphael, do not tell anyone about our meetings yet, not even your wife. People are not ready to understand. When the time is right to reveal your gift, you will know." "But what if I think it was all my imagination?" I asked. "What if I wake up tomorrow and believe this was just a dream?" He paused and looked at me one last time. "Then practice the exercise I taught you, and observe what happens with your mother the next time you visit her." And with that, he was gone. The golden light dissipated like smoke, and I was alone in the square again. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel truly alone. I felt a sense of purpose, an energy pulsing inside me that I had never experienced before. I walked home slowly, trying to process everything. Was it possible? Could I really have a healing gift? Or had I finally completely lost my mind? There was only one way to find out. I got home around 5 in the morning. Mariana was still asleep, so I slipped into the bedroom quietly and lay down, trying not to make a sound. But sleep. There was no chance of that. My mind was in complete turmoil. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every single second of the encounter. With each passing minute, it all felt more and more surreal. "You've lost it," I thought to myself. "You're having a nervous breakdown, and now you're hallucinating aliens." When the alarm went off at 7, Mariana had to get ready for school. She noticed I was already awake. "Rafa, didn't you sleep at all?" "Not much," I lied. "Insomnia." She sat up and looked at me with that worried expression I knew so well. "My love, you need to get professional help. This depression is getting too serious. You left in the middle of the night and just got back." "I just went for a walk," I said. "A walk until 5 in the morning? Rafa, for God's sake." I didn't know what to say. How could I possibly explain that I'd just spent the night talking to a being from another dimension who told me I had healing powers? She already thought I was in a bad way. Imagine if I told her that. "I'll get better," was all I could manage to say. She sighed, kissed me on the forehead, and went to get ready for work. After she left, I was alone again with my thoughts. All day I swung between two extremes. One moment I'd be convinced it was all real and I'd feel a surge of excitement. The next I was certain I was going crazy and a wave of panic would wash over me. That afternoon I remembered the exercise the being had taught me. Well, I thought, what harm could it do? I sat on the bed, closed my eyes, and tried the breathing exercise with the golden light. For the first few attempts, I felt nothing. "See," I thought, "it was all in your head." But on the 4th or 5th try, something happened. I felt a gentle tingling sensation travel down my spine. It wasn't intense, but it was definitely something. "Coincidence," I muttered to myself. In the days that followed, my life fell back into the same depressive routine, waking up late, lying on the sofa, pretending to look for jobs, and picking fights with Mariana over nothing. The only difference was that every day in secret I practiced that breathing exercise, and I swear I started to feel a little bit better. Just a little. It could have been a placebo, but I felt like there was a new kind of energy circulating through my body. About a week later, my mother called. "Son, it's been a while since you came to visit me." The guilt hit me hard. I hadn't been back to the hospital since that night in the square. I'd been avoiding it, afraid that nothing different would happen, which would force me to admit it had all been a hallucination. "Sorry, Mom," I said. "Things have been complicated here, but I'll come by today." "Okay, my love. I miss our talks." When I arrived at the hospital that afternoon, my mother was pale and looked completely drained. A nurse told me she'd had a few rough days with a lot of nausea and fatigue. "Hi, Mom," I said, trying to hide my own anxiety. "Hello, my beautiful son," she replied with a weak smile. "Come sit here next to me." We made small talk for a few minutes. She asked about work and I lied again, telling her I had a few prospects. But the entire time my mind was racing. What if I try the technique here? What if this is actually real? At one point, she closed her eyes and sighed. "Oh, Rafa, I'm just so tired. Sometimes I feel like I don't have the strength to keep fighting." In that instant, something inside me made a decision. Without overthinking it, I placed my hand on her arm. "Mom," I said, "just be still for a few minutes. I want to try something." She opened her eyes, looking curious, but she didn't object. I closed my own eyes and began the breathing exercise the being had taught me. I imagined the golden light entering my body, and then I tried to direct that light through my hand and into my mother. For the first few seconds, nothing happened, but then I felt it. A kind of gentle warmth started to flow from my chest down into my hand. "Rafa," my mother whispered, "what are you doing?" I feel a pleasant warmth in my arm. My heart pounded. She could feel it. I continued for several more minutes trying to stay focused. When I finally opened my eyes, my mother was looking at me with an expression I hadn't seen in months. "Son," she said, "I don't know what you just did, but I feel different. Lighter." I stayed with her for another hour, and in that short time, the change in her was visible. The color returned to her face. She became more animated. She even asked a nurse for some fruit because she was hungry, something that hadn't happened in weeks. Leaving the hospital, I felt like I was in a daze. This can't be happening, I told myself. It can't possibly be real. But it was. That evening, the phone rang. It was my mother. "Rafa," she said, "I don't know what you did today, but I feel better than I have in the last 2 months. Even the doctor commented on it during his rounds. He said my vitals were excellent." When I hung up the phone, my hands were shaking. It was real. The encounter, the gift, all of it was real. But instead of feeling happy, I felt a surge of panic. And now what? I thought. If this is real, then my life is about to change completely. It would mean accepting that the world is much bigger than I ever imagined. It would mean taking on a huge responsibility. And what if I couldn't handle it? What if I tried to help other people and it didn't work? What if everyone just thought I was some kind of crazy charlatan? And Mariana, how could I ever explain to her that I'd suddenly discovered I had supernatural powers? The next few days were an emotional roller coaster. One minute, I'd be thrilled by the possibilities. The next, I'd be terrified of the implications. That's when I knew. I needed more proof. I needed to be absolutely certain before I took another step. If this being was real, I thought, he said he would come back, so I would wait. And when he did, I was going to ask him every single question that was tormenting me. "Do you believe there are superior beings helping us?" Because I have to tell you, up until that point, I had always been a skeptic about this kind of thing. But sometimes life puts an experience in your path that forces you to question everything you thought was true. And he returned sooner than I ever could have imagined. 3 nights after I'd visited the hospital, I was in the kitchen making coffee when I felt it again. That familiar tingle on the back of my neck. My heart began to pound because I already knew what it meant. I looked through the window and there he was, standing in the backyard, radiating that same soft golden light. This time I wasn't afraid. I just felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. I slipped out the back door and walked toward him. "You came back," I said, my voice still laced with disbelief. "I promised I would return," he replied, his voice entering my mind. "And I see you have already begun to test your gift. How do you know?" "The energy around you has changed, Raphael. It is brighter, more aligned. And your mother? How is she?" "Better," I said. "Much better. The doctors don't understand it, but she's responding to the treatment in a way that has surprised everyone." He seemed to nod, satisfied. "But I need to understand more," I pressed on. "I need to be more certain. What if it was just a coincidence? What if I'm just fooling myself?" "I understand your doubts," he said. "It is natural to question something so far outside your previous reality. That is why I have come today, to give you a clearer demonstration of what you are capable of." "How?" "There is someone in your neighborhood who needs your help, urgently, and someone you know who can serve as definitive proof of your powers." My mind immediately went to my neighbor, John. He'd been getting worse and worse with that ulcer. Just last week, I'd seen him coming home from the doctor's office, and he looked terrible. "John?" I asked. "Exactly. But it is not just the ulcer that is affecting him. There is something deeper. I will show you." He extended his hand, and this time I didn't hesitate to touch it. The vision was different from the others. It was as if we were inside John's house, watching him sit alone at his kitchen table. But this time I could see not just his physical body, but his energy as well. And it was frightening. Around his stomach was a dark, pulsating spot. But there were other spots too. One on his chest, throbbing with anxiety, and another clouding his head, heavy with negative thoughts. "What am I seeing?" I asked. "You are seeing the true cause of John's illness. The ulcer is merely the physical symptom of a much larger energetic imbalance. He is carrying resentment, repressed anger, fear of the future. All of this has created blockages in his vital energy." The vision shifted. Now I saw myself going into John's house and placing my hands over him. I saw the golden light flowing from me to him, and I watched as those dark spots slowly began to dissolve. "You can do this tomorrow," the being said. "But first I must teach you a more advanced technique." And just like that, we were back in my yard. "Sit on the ground and close your eyes," he instructed. I did as he asked. "Now," his voice came, "instead of just imagining the golden light entering you, I want you to feel it coming from a superior source. Imagine a direct connection between yourself and the universal healing energy." As I followed his instructions, I felt something far more powerful than before. It was as if my entire body had become a conduit, a bridge between dimensions. "Very good," he said. "Now learn to direct this energy. Place your hands in front of your chest and imagine the light flowing through them." When I did, I opened my eyes and saw something incredible. A soft light was actually emanating from my palms. It was faint, but it was visible. "Is this real?" I asked, staring at my own hands. "Completely real. You are seeing your own vital energy manifest. With practice, it will grow stronger." For the next hour, he guided me through a series of exercises. He taught me how to feel for energetic blockages, how to direct healing to specific areas of the body, and how to protect my own energy during the process. "Now you are ready for a true demonstration," he said when we were finished. "Tomorrow, go to John. Tell him you've learned about a relaxation technique that can help with stress. Do not mention energy healing or otherworldly beings yet. Simply offer to try something that might make him feel better." "What if it doesn't work?" "It will work," he assured me. "But you must have faith in yourself. Energy healing requires pure intention, genuine compassion, and confidence in the process," he told me. "And you?" I asked. "Will you be here?" "I will be watching, but from a distance. You need to learn to trust your own power." The next morning, I woke with an energy I hadn't felt in years. It was as if every cell in my body were vibrating at a different frequency. After Mariana left for work, I walked over to John's house. I found him in the yard watering his plants, but you could see he was in bad shape, pale with the exhausted look of someone who hadn't slept well. "Hey John," I said, "how are you doing?" "Oh, Raphael," he sighed. "Terrible, man. This ulcer just won't get better. And now the doctor's saying I might need surgery." It was the perfect opening. "John, can I ask you something a little strange? Would you be willing to try a relaxation technique I've been learning? It's meant to help with stress, and I thought it might bring you some relief." He looked at me with a mixture of suspicion and desperation. "What kind of technique?" "It's really simple," I explained. "You just need to lie down and relax while I guide you through some breathing exercises and use a light touch. Nothing weird, I promise." John hesitated for a few seconds, but the pain in his eyes was undeniable. "Man, the way I'm feeling, I'll try anything. Let's go inside." As we entered his house, my heart was hammering in my chest. This was my first real attempt with someone other than my mother. "Just lie down there on the sofa and close your eyes," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. John did as I asked, and I pulled up a chair beside him. I closed my own eyes and began the breathing exercise the being had taught me. Immediately, I felt the energy begin to flow. I placed one hand over his stomach and the other on his chest. "What are you doing?" he asked, though he kept his eyes closed. "Just relax," I said. "Breathe deeply." For the first few minutes, I focused on sending healing energy to the area of his ulcer. I could feel my hands growing warm, and incredibly, I could feel his energy start to respond. It was like a silent communication was happening between our energy fields. After about 10 minutes, I moved one of my hands to his forehead, sensing a great deal of mental tension there as well. "John," I said softly, "as I do this, I want you to think about forgiving everyone who has ever hurt you, and forgiving yourself too." I don't know why those words came out, they just did. We stayed like that for about half an hour. At the end, when I removed my hands, John slowly opened his eyes. "Man," he said, his voice different. "What did you do? I feel, I don't know, like I just took some really strong medicine." "What do you mean?" "The pain in my stomach," he said. "It's gone. And you know that anxiety I have all the time? That's gone too." He sat up on the sofa and looked at me with an expression of pure awe. "Raphael, where did you learn to do this?" "It's something new I've been studying," I replied, still trying to process what had just happened. John stood up and walked around his living room. He was visibly transformed, lighter, with more color in his face. "Dude," he said, "in 2 years of medical treatments, nothing has ever made me feel like this. What in the world did you do?" Do you want me to come back?" I asked. "Maybe we could do a few more sessions." "I do," he said. "Wow, I really do." When I left John's house, I was in a state of shock. It had worked. It had actually worked. And it wasn't a placebo or a coincidence. John was physically better, visibly healthier. He called me that night. "Raphael, man, something incredible happened. I went to the doctor this afternoon for those routine ulcer tests, and the doctor was completely confused. Everything was real. I really did have the power to help people. But I also knew this was just the beginning." After the experience with John, I spent the next 3 days in a kind of trance. It felt like I had woken up from a very long dream and was finally seeing reality for the first time. A reality that was much bigger and more fantastic than I had ever imagined. But accepting it wasn't easy. It's not a simple thing to accept that your entire life has changed overnight, that you've discovered a purpose completely different from the one you always thought you had. On the 4th night, the being appeared again. He materialized in my backyard while I was sitting on the porch trying to make sense of it all. "How are you feeling?" was the first thing he asked. "Confused," I answered honestly. "Happy but confused. It's a lot to take in all at once." "I understand. It's normal to feel this way when you're discovering who you truly are," he said. "But you have already taken the most important first step." "What step was that?" "You proved to yourself that the gift is real. Now you need to make a conscious decision. Will you fully accept this mission, or do you prefer to return to the life you had before?" The question caught me completely off guard. "I can go back?" "You can," he replied. "I can make you forget that any of this ever happened. You would go back to being exactly the person you were before that night in the square, but you must decide now." I was silent for a few minutes thinking. I could go back to the depression, the unemployment, the feeling of worthlessness. Or I could embrace this completely unknown path, one that clearly had the power to transform not only my life, but the lives of others too. "If I accept completely," I asked, "what does that mean in practical terms?" "It means dedicating your life to developing and using this gift," he explained. "It means studying, practicing, and preparing to help hundreds, perhaps thousands of people in the years to come. It means accepting a profound responsibility. And my family, my marriage? When you live your true purpose, everything else in your life will begin to align in a more harmonious way. But I will not lie, there will be challenges. Some people won't understand. Others might even criticize or question you. You will need the courage to move forward even when doubts arise. My thoughts went straight to Mariana. How could I ever explain to her that I had discovered I have healing powers? How could I tell her about the aliens? She already thought I needed psychological help. What if she doesn't accept it? Raphael. His voice became softer. Whoever truly loves you will support you. They might not understand at first, but true love always finds a way. And you'll be surprised by how many people in your life were waiting for someone like you. Someone who could offer an alternative. A real hope for healing. He was right. In recent days, since the experience with John, I had felt different with Mariana too. More present, more affectionate, more connected. It was as if that energy awakening in me was overflowing into all aspects of my life. But I don't know anything about running a business, I said. How to charge for sessions, how to explain to the world what I do. One thing at a time, he said, and I could feel something like a laugh in his telepathic voice. First, you must commit to the complete development of your gift. Then the universe will take care of opening the necessary paths. I looked at him, then back at my house where Mariana slept peacefully. I thought about my mother, who was improving every day. I thought about John, who for the first time in 2 years was sleeping without pain. And I thought about all those people the being had shown me in the visions who were alone, sick, and without hope. Will you continue to guide me? Yes, but differently. In the coming months, I will appear periodically to teach you more advanced techniques, answer your questions, and guide you on specific cases. But gradually, you will become independent. You will develop your own intuition, your own connection with the source of healing. And after that, then you will become a master. And who knows, one day you yourself will guide other healers who are just awakening. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Me, guiding other people, it seemed impossible. But then 6 months ago, the idea of healing someone had also seemed impossible. I accept, I said, and the words came out with a conviction that surprised even me. I completely accept this mission. The moment I spoke, a wave of energy surged through my entire body. It felt like every cell had been activated at once. My hands began to tingle, and for the first time I could see my own aura, a soft golden light surrounding my body. Excellent, he said, and I could feel a deep satisfaction in his voice. From this moment on, you are officially an awakened energy healer. Your intensive training begins today. Today? Now? Now. He stepped forward and placed both of his hands on my head. Immediately, I felt a flood of information entering my mind. It wasn't in words. It was pure knowledge. Healing techniques, ways to identify different types of energetic blockages, methods of protection, ways to connect with the universal energy. It was like downloading years of study in a matter of minutes. When he removed his hands, I was breathless. What was that? A foundational knowledge download, he explained. You now have access to information that would have taken you years to learn through conventional means. But remember, he continued, knowledge without practice is useless. You will need to use all of this, experiment, make mistakes, and learn. I looked down at my hands. They were glowing in a way I had never seen before. I can really do this, I murmured, more to myself than to him. You always could, Raphael. You just forgot who you really were. Now you have remembered. We spent the rest of the night, or what was left of the early morning, practicing. He taught me how to perform a complete energy cleansing on a person, how to work with chakras, and how to identify emotional traumas that were stored in the physical body. As the sun began to rise, I felt like a completely new person. "Our next session will be in 1 week," he said, preparing to leave. "Until then, practice the exercises I taught you every day. And Raphael..." "Yes?" "It is time to tell your wife. She needs to know who you really are." My stomach twisted into a knot. How am I supposed to explain all this? "With honesty and with love, he replied, "and perhaps with a practical demonstration." And with that, he vanished, leaving me alone in the backyard with the rising sun and a completely new life stretching out before me. I went back inside and into our bedroom. Mariana was still asleep. I sat on the edge of the bed and just watched her, trying to figure out how to even begin this conversation. "Mari," I whispered, gently touching her shoulder, "I need to talk to you about something very important." She slowly opened her eyes. "What time is it, Rafa?" 6 in the morning, I said. "But something has happened. Something that's going to change our lives." She sat up in bed, sensing from the tone of my voice that this was serious. "Did you get a job?" I smiled. "No, my love. I discovered what my true work in life is." The conversation that followed was one of the most difficult I've ever had. Imagine trying to wake your wife up at 6 in the morning to tell her you've discovered you have energy healing powers after talking to benevolent aliens. "Rafa," she said after I'd finished explaining everything, "do you hear yourself? Aliens? Healing powers? My love, you need to get professional help. Urgently." I had expected that reaction. In fact, I probably would have been more worried if she'd accepted it all without question. "Mari, I know how it sounds," I said. "I thought I was going crazy too, but let me show you something." "Show me what?" "You haven't been sleeping well for the last few weeks because of that tension in your neck, right? Let me try to help." She hesitated, but I could see the pain in her eyes. The stress of the last few months had really taken a toll on her neck and shoulders. "Just don't do anything weird," she said, perching on the edge of the bed. I sat behind her and gently placed my hands on her shoulders. I closed my eyes and began to channel the energy just as the being had taught me. I immediately felt a warmth flowing through my palms. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Your hands are getting hot." "Just relax," I said. I continued for about 15 minutes, directing the energy to the points of tension I could feel. When I finished, Mariana rolled her shoulders and looked back at me with an expression of utter surprise. "How did you do that?" she asked. "The pain is completely gone," she said. "And I feel, I don't know, calmer." "That's what I've been trying to tell you," I said. She was quiet for a few minutes, processing. "Even if you do have some kind of gift," she said finally. "This whole alien story..." "Mari, I know it's hard to believe," I said, "but I need you to trust me. I need your support as I start this new chapter of my life." The days that followed were complicated. Mariana swung between being supportive and being worried. One moment she would be encouraging me to explore this gift, and the next she would be suggesting I see a psychiatrist. But the evidence kept mounting. John's improvement was spectacular. Within 2 weeks, his ulcer had completely healed. His doctor even told him he'd never seen such a rapid and total recovery. And my mother, too. Her latest tests showed the tumor was shrinking much faster than the doctors had expected. She was radiant, full of life. But the most profound transformation was in me. That depression that had been eating away at me for months, it was just gone. Not gradually, but all at once. It was as if I had finally found my place in the universe, my reason for being here. I woke up every day excited, full of energy and purpose. Mariana even commented on it. "It's like I'm married to a different person," she said one morning. "You're back to being the Rafa I met in college." Actually, you're even better, more centered, more confident. And it was true. For the first time in my adult life, I felt completely aligned with who I was meant to be. The being continued to appear each week, always teaching me more advanced techniques. I learned how to work with deep emotional traumas, how to perform energetic clearings on spaces, and how to identify and dissolve karmic blockages. Each session felt like gaining years of experience in just a few hours. After a month, I started seeing other people. First, it was close friends who had heard about the improvements in John and my mother. Then it was friends of friends. Before long, complete strangers were seeking me out. I set up a massage table in our spare room and turned the space into a small office. I didn't charge anything at first. I just wanted to practice and to help. The results were astonishing. My sister-in-law, Sandra, who had suffered from fibromyalgia for 2 years, was completely free of pain after just 3 sessions. My friend Carlos, who had been struggling with panic attacks, was able to stop taking his medication after 2 weeks of treatment. But there was one case that truly left its mark on me. It was a 60-year-old woman named Mrs. Aparecida, who lived 2 streets over. She had arthritis so severe that she could barely walk. Her children came to me as a last resort. The first time I saw her, she was in a wheelchair, her hands completely deformed by inflammation. "Young man," she said, "I don't really believe in this sort of thing, but my children insisted. Do you really think you can help me?" "Mrs. Aparecida," I replied, "I will do my very best, but I need you to have a little faith in the process." It took 6 sessions. After the first one, she was able to move her fingers without pain for the first time in 3 years. After the third, she was walking with a cane. And after the 6th, she was dancing in my living room. "Boy," she said at the end with tears in her eyes, "you have given me back my life. How can I ever thank you?" "Mrs. Aparecida," I replied, feeling emotional myself, "you help me more than you know. Every person I see teaches me something new about this gift." That's when I realized it wasn't just me healing people. It was an exchange. Each session strengthened me too, connecting me more deeply with my purpose. Mariana, who had been so skeptical in the beginning, started to get involved. She became my informal assistant, greeting people, scheduling sessions, even helping with some of the relaxation techniques. "Rafa," she said to me one night, "I'm seeing the impact you're having on people's lives. It's incredible. Maybe this whole story is real after all." "Maybe," I joked. "Okay, it's real," she admitted. "I still don't completely understand it, but it's real." After 2 months of seeing people for free, the being guided me to start charging for my sessions. "You need to value your work," he explained, "and people need to invest something in order to value what they receive. Energy is always an exchange." I started by charging a symbolic amount, just enough to cover my basic costs. But I quickly realized that I could make a living from this, and a good one. Within 3 months, my schedule was completely full. People were traveling from other cities to see me. Some of the cases were so dramatic that even I was stunned by the results. "My love," Mariana said to me one night, "you need to see this." She showed me a notebook where she'd been keeping a record of all the cases I'd treated. "In 3 months, you've helped 127 people. Of those, 89 have had significant improvement or a complete healing. You have a success rate of nearly 70%. I looked at the numbers and I couldn't believe it. "And this is just the beginning," she continued. "Imagine what you'll be able to do in a year, in 5 years. But the biggest transformation wasn't in the numbers. It was in how I saw myself and how I saw the world. Before, I was just Raphael, an ordinary guy with no clear purpose, struggling to survive in a world that often felt hostile. Now I was a channel for healing, a bridge between higher dimensions and people who needed help. I had a clear mission. I was having a real impact on the world. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly why I was here. You know what's most incredible? I said to Mariana that night. What? 6 months ago, I was in the worst place I've ever been. I thought I was useless, a total failure, and today I'm helping dozens of people every week to heal, to find hope, to reconnect with their own strength. It just goes to show we never know what destiny has in store for us, she replied. No, I corrected her. It's proof that sometimes our worst moments are just the preparation for our greatest transformation. And I was right, because the best was yet to come. 1 year after that night in the square, my life was unrecognizable. I mean that in the most literal sense. What began as a small practice in my guest room has grown into an energy therapy clinic with 3 treatment rooms, 2 assistants, and a waiting list that stretches 2 months out. But as impressive as the numbers are, they don't even begin to tell the real story. Let me tell you about a woman named Marina. She came to see me after a 5-year battle with severe depression, which began after she lost her son in a car accident. She had tried everything: psychiatrists, therapists, antidepressants, even hospital stays. Nothing had worked. During our first session, I was able to identify an immense energetic burden of guilt she was carrying, a feeling that she was somehow responsible for the accident. For 2 months, we worked together, focusing not just on energy healing, but on helping her release that guilt. Today, Marina is a completely different person. She's back at work. She has reconciled with her husband, and most incredibly, she has founded an NGO to support other mothers who have lost children. She turned her pain into her purpose. Raphael, she told me during our last session, you didn't just heal me. You showed me that it's possible to be reborn from the ashes. Then there was the case of Mr. Antonio, a 68-year-old retiree with prostate cancer. His doctors had given him 6 months to live. We worked together intensively for 4 months. I was very clear that this was not a replacement for his medical treatment, but a way to complement it. His most recent test showed that the tumor had shrunk by 80%. His oncologist, who had been skeptical at first, now recommends energy therapy as a complementary treatment to his other patients. Young man, Mr. Antonio told me with a smile at our last appointment, you gave me back the will to live. Now I'm making plans for the next 2 years. But it wasn't just about physical healing. The emotional and spiritual transformations were even more profound. Julia, a 40-year-old executive who was living with crippling chronic stress, discovered during our sessions that her true passion was art. She left her corporate job and is now a fulfilled and successful artist. Roberto, a businessman on the verge of bankruptcy and divorce, learned how to reconnect with his true self. He saved both his marriage and his company, and now leads his team with a much more humane and conscious approach. Each of these stories taught me something new about the healing power that we all carry inside us. Because I came to realize that I wasn't actually healing anyone. I was simply helping people reconnect with their own capacity to heal. The being continued to guide me throughout that first year, though his visits became less and less frequent. The last time we spoke, he told me, Raphael, you no longer need me. You have developed your own connection with the source of healing. You are a genuine master now. But what if I have questions? I asked. What if a case comes along that I don't know how to handle? Trust your intuition, he replied. And remember, you are never alone. Whenever you need higher guidance, it will come. Perhaps not in the way you expect, but it will come. And he was right. After his visit stopped, I began to receive guidance in other ways. Through vivid dreams with specific instructions, through sudden insights during my sessions, through intuitions that always proved to be correct. It was as if I had developed a direct channel to a higher intelligence. Word of my work began to spread organically. I never had to advertise or market myself. People would heal, and they would tell others. A local radio station called, wanting to do an interview. Then it was the city newspaper. Soon, people from other states were seeking me out. "My love," Mariana said one night, "you've become a point of reference. People are talking about your work all the way in Sao Paulo." But the recognition that moved me the most came from an unexpected place. Dr. Eduardo, the physician who had been treating my mother, asked to speak with me. "Rafael," he said, "I have to admit I was very skeptical about your work at first, but I can't deny the results I've seen. Not just with your mother, but with several of my other patients who have started energy therapy." "Doctor," I said, "I've always been very clear that I am not a replacement for medical treatment." "I know," he replied, "and that's exactly why I want to propose a partnership. What if we work together? I would handle the medical side of things and you could complement it with your energy work. We could help so many more people that way." And that is how the first integrative medicine protocol in our region came to be. Here I was, a guy who just a year ago had been unemployed and depressed, now working side by side with renowned physicians. The results of our partnership were even more spectacular. Cancer patients began responding better to chemotherapy. People with depression needed smaller doses of their medication. Cases of autoimmune disease showed inexplicable improvements. My mother, by the way, was completely healed. Her doctors declared a total remission of her cancer. At 62, she had the energy of a 50-year-old. "Son," she told me during Sunday lunch, "I always knew you were special, but I never imagined it would be like this." "Mom," I said, "we're all special. Some of us just forget." And that, perhaps, is the most important lesson I learned in that first year. We all have extraordinary gifts. We all have a special mission in this life. The problem is that most people never awaken to it. I started giving talks about this, not just about energy healing, but about life purpose, and about how to turn a crisis into an opportunity for growth. "Do you think I'm special because I have this gift of healing?" I would ask my audiences. "I'm not. You have your own unique gifts, just waiting to be awakened. The question is, are you willing to go through the transformation that's required?" Because I had come to understand that my depression, my unemployment, all those terrible months were essential in making me the person I am today. Without that journey through the valley of the shadow, I would never have developed the compassion needed to be a true healer. Life's greatest blessings, I would say, often come disguised as its greatest tragedies. At the end of that first year, I took a look back at the numbers. I had treated 847 people. I had a 73% rate of significant improvement. There were 156 cases of complete healing, 23 partnerships with health professionals, and 12 lectures given to a total of 3,200 people. But do you know which number made me the most proud? 0. 0 days of depression. 0 days without a purpose. 0 days spent questioning why I was here. "Mari," I said to my wife on the eve of the first anniversary of that encounter in the square, "can you believe the transformation that has happened in our lives?" "Sometimes I can't," she replied. "It feels like we've lived 3 different lives in the space of a single year. And the most incredible thing," I continued, "is that this is just the beginning. I feel like the next few years are going to be even more impactful." And I was right. Because that night, exactly 1 year after our first meeting, the being appeared one last time. "Rafael," he said, "I have come to say goodbye and to give you one last piece of guidance." "Goodbye? My mission with you is complete. You have become everything we hoped you would. Now it is your turn to mentor others who are awakening." He showed me a vision of the future. I saw a network of energy healers spreading across the country, all of them connected, all working to elevate the consciousness and health of humanity. You will be one of the pioneers of this new era of healing, he said. But you must always remember the power is not in you. You are only a channel. Stay humble. Stay in service to others. Thank you, was all I could say. Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't even believe in myself. Raphael, he said for the final time, it was not us who believed in you. We simply reminded you of who you have always been. And then he disappeared forever, leaving me with the certainty that my true journey was only just beginning. 2 years have passed since that last encounter, and I can tell you the being was right. My journey really was just starting. Today, as I write this story, I'm 37 years old, living a life I never could have imagined. The clinic has transformed into an integrative medicine center with a team of 12 professionals. Doctors, psychologists, physical therapists, and nutritionists, all of us working together. But the most incredible thing is that I'm no longer alone in this mission. In the last 2 years, other people with similar gifts have begun to appear. People who, like me, went through a profound crisis and then discovered they possessed extraordinary capacities for healing. The first was Fernanda, a 29-year-old nurse who lost her job during the pandemic and fell into a severe depression. She came to me as a patient, but during one of our sessions I realized she also had a natural gift for energy healing. Fernanda, I said to her during a treatment, have you ever considered that maybe you're not just a patient here? Maybe you're a future colleague. Today, she's one of the most talented healers on our team. She specializes in the emotional healing of children and has already helped hundreds of them overcome traumas and blockages. Then came Miguel, an engineer who was laid off at 45 and found himself in a deep existential crisis. During our work together, he discovered an incredible gift for healing addictions and dependencies. Raphael, he told me after 6 months of training, for the first time in my life, I feel like I've found my true purpose. Today, Miguel coordinates our energy recovery program for chemical dependency, which has an 82% success rate, far higher than traditional methods. And the list goes on. It's as if an invisible network is connecting these people. They arrive at specific moments, always after having gone through some major personal transformation of their own. I realized that my mission had evolved. It was no longer just about healing people one by one, but about forming a new generation of energy healers. We created a 2-year training program. It's not easy. It demands total dedication, a profound personal transformation, and a genuine commitment to serving others, but the results are extraordinary. We've already trained 34 energy healers who are now working in various cities across the country. Each one has developed their own specialty. Some focus on physical diseases, others on emotional traumas, and still others on spiritual issues. My love, Mariana told me last month, do you realize that energy healing centers are being created in different cities because of your work? It was true. I receive messages almost daily from former students telling me about the results they're getting in their regions. Healings that defy traditional medicine, transformations that go far beyond physical health. Cristiano, for example, graduated a year ago and returned to his hometown of Goiânia. He's already treated more than 300 people. He's established partnerships with 3 hospitals in the city and is revolutionizing the way they treat cancer patients. Patricia, who works in Salvador, has specialized in healing the trauma of domestic violence. She's developed specific techniques to work with women who have suffered abuse and has already helped more than 150 of them completely free themselves from those traumas. But what moves me the most are the messages I receive from the people who have been healed by these former students. Dr. Raphael, wrote a 73-year-old woman named Mrs. Maria, I want to thank you for teaching Fernanda. She healed me of the arthritis that had been tormenting me for 15 years. But more than that, she gave me back my joy for life. Or this one. which arrived just last week. Raphael, my 8-year-old son, had selective mutism for 3 years. No psychologist could help him. In 2 sessions with Miguel, he started speaking normally again. How can I ever thank you for training this angel? Of course, it's not all been smooth sailing. We face resistance from the more conservative corners of the medical community. We get criticism from skeptics and questions about the scientific validity of our methods. But the results speak for themselves, and more health professionals are opening up to this integrative approach. Dr. Eduardo, who was the first physician to partner with me, now coordinates a medical residency program that includes basic training in energy therapies. Raphael, he told me recently, in the 5 years we've been working together, I've seen things that traditional medicine simply cannot explain. I can no longer ignore this reality. Beyond the training, we've also expanded into other areas. We have an energy healing program for animals that has yielded incredible results. We have another one for plants and organic agriculture. We even have a pilot project for the energetic cleansing of urban environments. It seems like there's no limit to where this energy can work, Mariana commented the other day, and it really does seem that way. My mother, who has now been cancer-free for 5 years, has become a kind of informal ambassador for our work. She tells her story to everyone and has already brought dozens of people to us for treatment. Son, she told me last Christmas, sometimes I look at you and I can't believe it. It's like you came into this world for this very purpose. Maybe she's right. Maybe we all come into this world with a specific mission, but most of us never discover what it is. What I've learned over all these years is that life's greatest transformations are almost always born in our darkest moments. That night in the square when I was at my absolute lowest wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of everything. When I give my talks, I often tell people, if you are going through a profound crisis right now, it may not be an ending. It may be the universe preparing you for your true mission. And always, there is someone in the audience who connects with this, who comes up to me afterward to say they're in that exact place. What do I do? They ask. And I tell them to trust the process. Keep your heart open and watch for the signs. When it is your time to awaken, you will know. Because I've learned that we don't choose our mission. Our mission chooses us. And when that happens, when we finally align with our true purpose, our entire life changes in ways we never could have imagined. Today, when I look back at that depressed and desperate guy from 3 years ago, I feel an immense sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the crisis that brought me to that square. Gratitude for the encounter with that being of light. Gratitude for every single person who has trusted me to help them heal. But above all, I feel gratitude for the discovery that we are all so much more powerful than we realize, that each of us has a unique gift just waiting to be awakened, and that every one of us has a special mission in this life. So the question is, are you ready to discover yours? If this story has touched you in some way, if you feel that you might also have a special mission waiting to be discovered, please leave a comment and share your own experience. Have you been through moments of crisis that later revealed themselves to be blessings? Have you ever felt that you possess special gifts you haven't yet fully developed? And if you know someone who is going through a difficult time right now, share this story with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear to understand that their crisis could be the beginning of their greatest transformation. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more inspiring stories like this one. Because I believe that the more people who awaken to their true purpose, the faster we can create a better world for everyone. Sending a hug full of light to all of you. And remember, you are so much more powerful than you imagine.